Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everyone. Today we have horoscopes coming up. We've got a monthly overview coming up, but to start the week, we're going to take a look at what's coming as the week unfolds, which is the appearance of Venus as the evening star and an immediate square to Uranus that Venus is making from Leo to Taurus. We're going to talk about that today since that is really the main thing unfolding this week. And then you'll see myself and Whitney and Alexandra get into the monthly overview, and Alex and Dana and I will get into your horoscopes. So that will be coming in the next couple of days as well. But today, Venus appearing as the evening star and squaring Uranus. That's the news for today. So before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 70,000 subscribers by the fall equinox. It's kind of a fun goal that we've set for ourselves as a channel to grow. We have noticed that a lot of people who watch regularly don't yet subscribe. If that's you and you don't mind helping us grow, please click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up and like also mean a lot, helps the channel to grow considerably. So thank you so much for doing that. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I want to promote some of the talks that we have coming up in the next few months. Go to the events page, click on live talks, and you will find that our next series of talks, starting in August on the 22nd, I'm giving a talk on the 8th house called The Place of Karmic Debts. We're going to talk about why this house is related with karmic debts, what this house is and isn't about, a lot of misconceptions people have, a lot of fear that people have about this house. And hopefully we will really clarify what this house is all about. And then in September, on the 19th, I'm doing a talk on Venus's 12 love languages, looking at Venus through the 12 signs of the zodiac and what she likes and doesn't like in love. And, love, sex, and relationships are always a good topic for astrology, since a lot of people use astrology to help, we use it to help us understand how we are in relationships. So this is going to be a good talk for understanding your Venus placement. In October, I'm doing a talk on the myth of astrological compatibility, what everybody gets wrong about the astrology of relationships. This will be a chance for me to tell you what I think works best when it comes to looking at the charts of people in relationships and how you can tell what will or won't work, and some of the major theories out there that I think are just not helpful. So talk about that in October. So check out those talks when you register. Of course, you get the link to attend live. If you can't attend, you get the recording to watch later. All right. So on that note, let's shift our attention to the astrology of this week. I'm going to put the real-time clock up. And what I want everybody to see is by Friday, August 2nd, Venus will be squaring Uranus at the end of this week. Now, if we back this up and come to Monday, today, you will see that we are a little more than 4 degrees out, right there. However, one of the things you should also be noticing is that we have Venus about just past the 15-degree range this week as well, which means Venus is appearing as the evening star. In the west, just after the sun sets, there is Venus. So Venus is making her appearance as the evening star. And this is a big deal because if we track Venus back, let me just, actually, you know what? Let me do it this way. So let's go by weeks. We're going to trace Venus back all the way to the time that she disappeared. And that moment of disappearance was right around the middle of April. Right around the middle of April. So if we back this up to the time of the solar eclipse on April 8th, at just about that time, Venus is disappearing. And from the solar eclipse in Aries going forward, all the way through, we will see that Venus comes through the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in late April, under the beams of the sun, invisible. In other words, she is behind the scenes of a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that took place in her sign. She then goes through the Cazimi right about the beginning of June, and then starts to separate. And now we are seeing Venus appear here at the end of July as the evening star. And the simple point is that when Venus starts her transformation right under the banner of a solar eclipse in Aries, right on the heels of Jupiter Uranus conjoining in her sign. What that means is that Venus is heavily involved in some of the biggest changes of the year, and certainly some of the biggest changes and symbolism that we're seeing in our lives this year. Of course, all of this is intimately tied to where these transits are happening in your birth chart, and people will experience them with greater or lesser significance depending on what they're also contacting in your natal chart. But suffice to say that Venus is heavily implicated in what is happening. So, what I want to do today is talk about 5 things to watch for, given that right now, with all of this history behind her, Venus is finally appearing as the evening star coming out of the underworld, making her dramatic appearance in an immediate square with Uranus, which echoes the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So that's a lot. If you're able to follow all that, good job. If not, don't worry. Just work with these takeaways. 5 things to watch for. 1, a dramatic appearance or announcement. And I would think of this as something happening this week into next week, where Venus, in all that she represents, women, sex, love, relationships, style, and aesthetics, values, beauty, will make a dramatic appearance. And with it comes an announcement. Usually, an announcement carries with it the connotation that I'm going to tell you something that has not yet been said. Or maybe a few people know, but I'm making it now public. I'm making it now known. And the reason that I use the word announcement is because when Venus emerges from the invisibility, so deeply tied to all of these revolutionary themes, the solar eclipse in Aries that she disappeared under, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in her sign of Taurus, and so on and so forth. What she has to share, what she is bringing forth right now, comes from a process of working behind the scenes through invisibility and the dive into the underworld. And now her emergence, I have something to say now that's been cooking. Right? I have something to share with you. I have something to serve you up that's been cooking. Or I have something to say that I have been thinking about or mulling over quietly and working on, and now I'm ready to show or share. So an appearance, an announcement, something that comes forth dramatically, but is thoroughly Venusian. A shift or change in something Venusian that constitutes a sudden or new appearance or announcement. Okay, so this could also be about something stepping forth from a place that has been more obscure. For example, someone stepping forward into a new role or position within a company from behind the scenes to now taking on a bigger role. And so anything that would constitute someone or something coming forth in a new or dramatic fashion, and probably some Venusian connotation around it. Okay. Number 2, a shocking or Venusian shift. Now, you could actually say a shocking Venusian shift. It doesn't have to be or, I guess. Uranus is the planet of shedding skin and suddenly, like, it's like fast, rapid, like molting. Is that the word? Fast, rapid transformation. And when the skin comes off, not only does I'm thinking of our bearded dragon, which is like a new family member of ours. Like maybe your colors have changed and the skin has been shed, and it all happens very rapidly. So a shift of color, a shift of value, a shift of creativity, a shift or shocking expression of Venusian creativity. Something that really constitutes a sort of Venusian revolutionary flashpoint. Okay. So I would also imagine this to be like, it could express in terms of shocking or provocative art, or shocking or provocative messaging around things like women, love, sex, and relationships. There's naturally a provocative quality to Uranus that you could also see in terms of what makes this moment sort of shocking. All right, the need for experimentation and originality in love and relationships. This is often these transits of Venus and Uranus, but especially as Venus is appearing as the evening star after so much work behind the scenes, could constitute a major shift in relationships, especially where a person is feeling like trapped or stuck or bored or um, resistant to change. And now suddenly the energy is there to create a shift in the balance of power, a shift in terms of the need for more playfulness or freedom or creativity or um, sexual experimentation in a relationship. Could be about the need for freedom to break up or get out of a relationship that feels stifling or in entrapping or in like restrictive somehow. So I think the other thing to recognize is that Venus is not just the ruler of relationships, like romantically, but may speak to social standing and a kind of broader social awareness and a sense of all the different kinds of relationships we have that are important in our lives. And this may constitute a shift in terms of how you feel like you need to show up or show yourself in those relationships. So watch for a shift in social dynamics, broadly speaking. Watch for there to be a need for a clean or clear break with various relationships or groups of people that are not matching with your own your sense of who you are. Venus in Leo cares a great deal about the loyalty to yourself and who you are has to be a big part of your relationships if you're a Venus and Leo. I'm a native Venus and Leo. I know this for a fact that if you don't feel like you have the room to shine and that there's kind of like a nice exchange between people where it's like you shine, I shine, we shine together, we exchange shiny powers, like then, if it feels like you have to diminish yourself too much, then you may feel like, you know what, this relationship does not allow me to really, feel full of myself in the right or good way. On the other hand, Venus in Leo can be full of itself in a not so good way. And so Venus squaring Uranus may suggest a wound or bruise to the ego, but one that helps your relationships grow because you receive a kind of, the ego ultimately is entrapping, even though it feels like it's all powerful. When the ego is in an unhealthy space, now I'm talking about it's actually enclosing us in a more limited sphere of like reference, and it's like a self enclosure. And so this can also be something that liberates us in the same way that if you're repressed in sexuality, Venus Uranus will help you break free. Well, what are the ego limitations that we have, and how can we break free from those so that we have happier, freer, more interesting relationships? That could be a part of this as well. Number 4, women, feminism, sexual liberation. I will say this in passing as a mere archetypal observation and fact, which is that as I am making this, I think it was yesterday that Joe Biden dropped out of the race. And immediately now, as we're coming into the end of July, and I'm making this, a week forward, there's talk of a woman running for office. There we go. I mean, in terms of there being an archetypal match to something that's happening that literally everyone is talking about right now, that would be very fitting. Now, I'm not saying, again, like at this time of year, you will hear me occasionally make some references to what like 90% of everyone is talking about, but only to illustrate the archetypes, because as you know, I don't sort of weigh in with my opinions on these things on this channel. But that is an interesting fact to simply observe as Venus makes her appearance as the evening star and hits Uranus, and we're suddenly talking about the possibility that a woman is running for office. instead of an older man that dropped out of the race as the sun was opposing Pluto, which is, like astrology works. But yeah, so anyhow, that's something to keep an eye on because whether you like her or not doesn't matter on the level of archetypes with respect to one of the classic Venusian Uranian topics: women, feminism, sexual liberation, concern with the rights or dignities of different kinds of gender, sexual categories and expressions, and so on and so forth. Thoroughly Venus Uranus. I mean, that combination will bring these topics up. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see things like that, sort of reaching a boiling point here at the end of the month and the beginning of August as Venus squares Uranus. Anyhow, so what else? I think one of the things that is also very true is, how does Venus break through some level of restriction or repression or oppression or suppression, whatever pression word we want to use? Like, Venus Uranus is so much about freeing oneself of anything that restricts or prohibits. And then when you add Venus in, you're talking about anything that restricts Venus. Venus will naturally seek some greater form of freedom or liberation from constraint. So, one thing I love about this, Venus in Leo is very theatrical and very performative. Like Venus, I would say Venus in Leo is a big part of why, when I was younger, I played sports, but I think I was probably one of only a couple of guys literally in my grade who was actively involved in theater every single year. Venus in Leo is like naturally likes to perform. And I think that's probably why I have a YouTube channel too. I would say, like, in my chart, probably the thing that's most sitting in front of a camera and sort of performing astrologically is probably Venus and Leo. Now, one of the images that I love with Venus and Leo square Uranus, because, by the way, Uranus and Taurus squared my natal Venus and Leo a year ago, so I got a lot of chance to think about this, is there's this, I would say, like, one of the images that comes to my mind for Venus and Leo square Uranus and Taurus is like a peacock showing its like tail. And so, like, there's this one of the things that I found really, really funny when Uranus squared my natal Venus in Leo, I started getting really into the Grateful Dead, which is like my wife's big thing. She's been a Deadhead for a long time. And so I really started really getting into them. And then for my birthday, we went and saw them in San Francisco, and Dead and Company now. And so I started wearing tie-dye. Like, you guys didn't see me wearing, I don't think I wore it on camera very much, but anyways, like, I became a little bit of a Deadhead, and I just thought it was so funny that, like, I've never been a tie-dye person, even though I have a lot of friends who are and love my tie-dye people, but it was like, I just never, I was like, not me. I was wearing tie-dye. I was like, well, this is very Uranus squaring my natal Venus in Leo. I look like a peacock. So anyway, watch for that. Watch for the need for this kind of peacock display of the feminine: proud, beautiful, bold, provocative. So last but not least on my list is just this broad idea that now the revolution may unfold. I say that because although Jupiter and Uranus have been at work since April, you can't think about astrological events in a vacuum any more than you can think about the fact that if you were a kid and you grew up in an alcoholic home, that didn't have like shockwaves that spread out through the rest of your life, right? Or if you were born with a family that showed a lot of affection and care and was really sensitive in the way that they raised you, those events spread out in a narrative arc, like across the rest of your life. We are way too focused on thinking about astrological events. I mean, at least I find myself doing this from time to time, where you think about an astrological event in terms of what will come right around that time. We don't spend enough time looking at the sort of follow through that happens in this case Watch Venus as she disappears right as all these events are happening. And now she's appearing and she hits the square to Uranus and Taurus, where the Jupiter Uranus conjunction was not just a couple months ago. That is significant. So the reason I say, and now the revolution may unfold, is that when now she's appearing, and as she appears, she hits the square to Uranus and Taurus. So it would not surprise me if some of the more significant ramifications of that Jupiter Uranus conjunction start rapidly unfolding here the rest of the calendar year, as Venus is now an evening star in her glory, in the place that she likes to be, queen of the evening sky, hitting a square to Uranus. Here I am. Now let's see what's been cooking that will finally unfold. See, astrological transits are very alchemical, and they may happen at a certain time, but they don't all bear their fruit at exactly the time that the aspects meet. That's really, really important. So for example, we have a second full moon in Capricorn this month of July at the 29th anaretic degree of Capricorn. Don't tell me that isn't going to continue to have major ramifications through the months of, September through November, when Pluto retrogrades and just sits down to take one last crap on the crapper, at that 29th degree between September and November. Don't tell me they're not connected. Of course they are. But how do you draw out the connection and figure out what it means? That takes a little bit more subtlety and nuance. It's especially hard to do in mundane forecasting, trying to make it something that is personally relevant for a huge audience of people who all have very different birth charts and very different individual situations. So we get to try to get some clues, here, watch for these things, broadly speaking, watch for these archetypes and themes and so forth. But that 29th degree of Capricorn is that full moon. We think, oh, the full moon. And let's just say, for example, in the political or mundane sphere, we see a presidential candidate taking himself out of the race. We think that was the event. That was the second full moon in Capricorn. Yeah, but Pluto, going back over that 29, sitting on that last 29th degree of that where the full moon was, all throughout the culmination of election season, is intimately connected. So we're looking for, it's like a mandala, and you're trying to make connections between transits and events, because they're pointing to a kind of underlying alchemy that's at work, that really doesn't pay attention to a lot of the boundaries we use, like calendar months and years and so on. Anyway, all right, my rant is over, and I hope that you found this useful. Stay tuned this week for horoscopes and a monthly breakdown with all of my wonderful co-hosts. Help us get to 70,000 subscribers. If you listen to this regularly and you're not yet subscribed, we would really appreciate your subscription. Help us grow the community, help us grow our work. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.